unconsciously, drowning in a sea of non-causality. This makes it difficult, if not impossible, for them to find their true selves. The crux of the issue is that only each person can free themselves from the ego. This means if this person consumed by their ego doesn't want that, you don't have the right to persuade them to follow your path, or even worse, to force them. You then have to accept their conscious decision that they don't want to follow you, just like they accept yours, that you don't want to follow them. It is their free choice, just as it is your free decision, because free will prevails here. For you as well as for them. Of course, there are also higher vibrating emotions. Neutrality, willingness, acceptance, empathy, charity, etc. All of these emotions are on the scale over 200, the moment when you become closer to your true self. These vibration frequencies make it easier to act consciously with each other or to interact with people. They give our true selves more room to gain consistency and, of course, room to develop. These vibrations manifest in charity and shared growth, in the feeling of oneness. One slowly becomes able to use one's true conscious abilities. However, these 4D emotions can be very easily distorted by the ego through duality, as I just explained to you. So be careful that you don't end up with arrogance and turn your world upside down. See you next time. Bye. Last but not least, high vibrating emotions in 5D: unconditional love, boundless freedom, absolute peace, infinite energy, unshakable faith, selfless devotion, true joy, and so on. At this level of consciousness, life consists of synchronicity and intuition. Your actions are guided by your higher consciousness. Truly, these emotions are so high vibrating that the ego could not survive long in these high conscious frequencies. So the ego withdraws, waiting and lurking, to intercept the moment when you are not fully conscious with yourself, in order to occupy space within you again. The ego will try to find a gap through a low vibrating 3D or a distorted 4D emotion in order to reoccupy unconscious space within you. And now please listen carefully. If the ego has consciously made it into the 5-dimensional realm with duality, it can become very dangerous. For here the ego can succumb to the error that it has godlike powers. After all, the ego has access to love. But this is a conditional love, a limited freedom, a time-bound peace, a limited energy, a wavering faith, a selfish devotion, and a false joy. Often people in leadership positions serve as suffering or even as a role model for unconscious people who have not yet realized their true selves, whereby these leaders are occupied by the ego. But unfortunately, the unconscious admirers are not even remotely aware of this. In addition, the thoughts of the same leaders are very ideological and extremist. In other words, question instead of blindly trusting. Yes, and the cunning among you have probably already recognized it. The universal key consists only of high vibrating materials. We were able to win light, energy, and information from the raw materials of life. Specifically, from these aforementioned 7 emotions from the 5D. This might be of interest at this point too. People with high vibrations can recharge our energy through their presence and empathy, while people with low vibrations consume our energy without even asking us. Either through crafty manipulation tactics, or they impose their will on us, or they constrain us so we can't express ourselves freely. Low vibrational people feel powerful because they can rise above you at your expense. But power taken by oneself is not the same as power received from others. Here's an example to illustrate the different frequencies. Let's say there's a party happening over the weekend. We all have that one acquaintance that thinking about them alone gives you a headache. During the week, you learn that this person will be at the party over the weekend. And suddenly, your good mood vanishes. Maybe you don't want to go to the party over the weekend anymore, because when this person is with you, everything feels so much heavier. Suddenly, your best friend gives you a call and says he's going to this party on the weekend too. As a result, the negative feeling of the first person is almost cancelled out of sheer anticipation, and you now can't wait to meet your best friend at the party because of this anticipation. It's all energy, it's all vibration, just different frequencies. So now to the question of whether the feelings now have to be constantly controlled or even turned off. On the topic of turning off, how are you going to suddenly stop vibrating in a world of vibrations? That's right, quite simply, not at all. This is not possible. Before we answer the question of controlling emotions, let us first address this huge error of humanity that I mentioned earlier. We were talking about these always angry, aggressive people. You've probably noticed that this person isn't like that all the time. But why is that? It's because this person is not the anger or aggression. Anger is anger, hate is hate, grief is grief, and you are you. What exactly do I mean by this? Your true self cannot consciously be the anger, hatred, or whatever rage. Your true self is just your conscious, pure, and genuine personality, the essence of you. Your conscious true self. You can, so to speak, carry a lot of anger, rage, and hatred unconsciously on your level of identification, but never exactly be or become these emotions and experiences. And here we can now look closely at how the different tricks of the ego affect us in the end. Let's first look at how two unconscious ego-possessed people behave with each other when both are occupied by low vibrating feelings. Person A meets person B. When the two meet, each emits its own vibration until the two frequencies meet and trigger a resonance. Due to this low vibration from the two, they quickly fall into the unconscious separation of the ego, so the two will hardly or not at all act. And if an interaction does occur, it doesn't feel real or quickly escalates. This whole game is only possible because duality holds us equally in the past and or future. Because we are not consciously in the here and now. Instead of us acting freely with and through our true selves, the ego once again subconsciously keeps us trapped in duality. With these evaluated experiences, which consist of prejudices, memories, old patterns, hopes, fears, or similar levels of identification, in the same circles over and over again. The ego unconsciously makes us go through the same hell every day. And this is where the great opportunity lies. If you consciously overcome the ego with all its dualistic tricks, you will feel completely free for the first time in this world. However, this step requires a lot of courage and even more determination. Now let's say person A is occupied in ego and person B has largely overcome the duality of the ego. There is now something really very interesting to observe. First of all, there's also a meeting of vibrations between the two of them. However, these two resonances are very different from each other. For person B, it will be an uncomfortable feeling. For me personally, it always feels very uncomfortable in my abdominal and chest region. But it is individual for everyone. For me, it is as if there is a cold pressure or something is missing in these regions. It is hard to explain or describe, but it is bearable and endurable. Because it is an external vibration and not your own. So because you are vibrating at a higher level, and this conscious vibration is coming from your true self, the unconscious external vibration is not relevant to you. Yet because you are sensitive, You might mistake it for a brief breath of fresh air by getting goosebumps or some other physical reaction. Now, what does this look like for person A? For this individual, it's nearly unbearable. You can usually almost physically notice these people. They are literally squirming from discomfort, wanting to escape the situation quickly, trying to place themselves above you in order to be in a position of power. They have to get louder to get justice, or even threaten violence if they have no other way out. In addition, he doesn't begrudge you your happiness. He wants to know your secret of happiness for himself. And if you explain it to him how it works, and he doesn't understand it, he will get angry and maybe insult you as he leaves. It is difficult for low-vibrating people to live in the truth of high-vibrating people. There is still the possibility for the ego here. If your true self is not yet so firmly established that person A is slowly trying to subconsciously slow down your vibrations to a level that is bearable for the ego, or even worse, through lies, deception, and trickery, you are tapped as an energy battery and you aren't even aware of it. But what the ego doesn't understand here is you don't need negative influence to get positive things. As already mentioned, suppressing or turning it off is not possible. This leads us to the question, do I have to consciously control my emotions? Controlling becomes difficult, not impossible though. But this would mean that instead of experiencing, understanding and learning from the pure vibrational frequency, I provided a framework, and within this spectrum, this emotion is then allowed to consciously vibrate. By the way, this is called self-limitation. What I'm saying is that your mind can reach any limit that you can imagine. So why set boundaries at all? So I hope you understand that the ego can only reach you through an emotional vibration, frequency, or an evaluated experience, and nothing else. And it's really good to know this. If you can keep your conscious vibration higher than the unconscious low vibration of the ego, you could protect yourself from the ego. So how can I consciously keep my vibration so high that the ego no longer finds unconscious space within me? It would be a huge help for you if you would first of all consciously adhere to these rules. Don't kill anyone, don't hurt anyone, don't lie to anyone, don't cheat anyone, don't manipulate anyone, don't take advantage of anyone, don't judge anyone, and most importantly, love yourself and forgive yourself. Then you will quickly notice how people's vibrations change in your environment. Be aware that you may lose old companions, but you will make true new friends. During this process, don't pay attention to what you've lost, but consciously focus on what you've gained. That would pave the way, but it's still difficult to walk. But I believe in you. So, now comes the question of all questions. How do I know that I'm acting in the ego, or when I'm consciously acting with my true self? And the key word is already embedded here, conscious. But this time I mean consciousness. But what do I mean by consciousness? We have already learned that we have many tools with which we can manifest ourselves in this world, such as our own personality, our own mind, and our own body. And on the other hand, we have learned that we are neither this personality nor this mind or our own body. Because these three are tools on the level of consciousness influenced by consciousness. And then our consciousness reacts to these depending on these individual tools. So we can be conscious with our tools through our consciousness. So what else remains? What could we really be if all these are just tools for consciousness and manifestation? Right, your pure consciousness